G'day, I'm Pete, the Aussie Bush Cop. In 2012 I retired from the New South Wales Police Force and moved to King Island to become a homesteader, and I'd like to tell you some of my stories. G'day everybody, thanks so much for joining me. Over the last few months I've been talking about my 1968 model HR Holden, and today at the end of this video I'm going to take you for a drive and give you a good look at it. So stay tuned, that'll be at the end. The stories that I have for you before that are somewhat eclectic. There's some sad stuff and there's some funny stuff. So let's get into it. The first one involves, I was called one evening to go down to a local oval, football oval, to assist with the landing of a helicopter that was going to make a medical evacuation of a patient. And so I was at home, my home and police station were under the same roof, and so I was at home having my evening meal during afternoon shift, and I get this message. And I had to go to another town, quite some distance away, to help land this helicopter, because the helicopter pilot wasn't sure if there was any obstructions, like maybe electric wires or trees across the oval. So my job was to go down there and ensure that the area was clear and they could land. So I left immediately, and as I said, it was some distance to get there, and when I got not far from my station, I could see quite a distance from one hill right over to where this next town was, and I could see the helicopter as plain as day, already making its descent onto the oval. But of course I continued there anyway. They must have satisfied themselves there was no obstructions, and they landed. When I got there, I was briefed that the reason for the helicopter landing there was that not very far away in the town was a young boy was seriously ill, and they had a road ambulance there tending to this young boy, and the road ambulance was going to bring him to the helicopter and put him in the helicopter and then fly him to the local hospital, like the big hospital. So when I got there, the helicopter, of course, was on the ground, and then there was confusion about the gate into the oval was locked with a big old padlock and key and chain, and no one seemed to know where the key was, and it was becoming rather a pressing issue to be able to get the road ambulance in to next to the helicopter, to the point where if they couldn't find a key, I was just going to drive my truck through the gate and just crash the gate to the ground and make it clear so the ambulance could get in there. It was a very pressing issue because we knew the boy was very ill. And so anyway, someone found the key, we got the gate open, and everything was ready for the arrival of the road ambulance. But it just didn't turn out to be that way. Very, very sad that I was sitting there and waiting, and then the road ambulance ambled down the road, went past the oval, past the helicopter, and just continued quietly, no lights and sirens, into the local hospital, and found out shortly after that the boy had passed away from some sort of illness. And of course that's just gut-wrenching, for the family. Horrible, just to think that their young boy was not long before healthy and well, and almost suddenly he's dead. How people come to terms with that, I truly don't know. And I was, as most of the time, I was working alone, and one of the truly great benefits of being in an organisation like the police force is the camaraderie. And sometimes that comes in different forms, and the camaraderie that I received after that came in an unusual form. I got back to my station and I was crestfallen, and I got a phone call from a police lady that worked at the big station that I was sort of attached to. I barely knew her, and she phoned me and wanted to know if she could come out and just be with me, I, as the big stoic male, declined that invitation, but it was very beautiful of her to do that. I'll lighten the mood a little bit now with a funny story. This happened in Dubbo, and when I started at Dubbo, we didn't have capsicum spray. It wasn't a thing, and during my time there, capsicum spray became an issue. became one of the things that we carried. And one of the times that I used it, we were called to, let's call it a half-baked brawl in one of the nasty parts of town. And when we got there, there was a fellow that was actually moving towards my partner in a very aggressive mode. So I used a move that's it's an approved move where you use your heel of your hand and you push the person into the chest to push them backwards, simply to give you some space. And then I did that, and then he continued to move again. So quickly, I'd probably already had my capsicum spray out of its holder on my belt and already had it ready to deploy. And so I deployed it, sprayed it into his face, and then it was a very confused situation, lots of people milling around, and he just took off like a scalded cat. And so then we just did lap after lap after lap of this area where it happened, like a lap of the suburban area where we lived. And eventually, after maybe about 3 passes around the block, this lady came out, a young lady, and she said, "Oh, can you come and help him? He's up the back." And he was up the back, the one that I sprayed. He's up the back and he's doing the right thing, actually. He's got his head under a tap and he's just pouring water into his face and into his eyes, because the capsicum spray really it affects your vision temporarily. You just can't, that burns that much. If you've ever got soap in your eyes, it's about that times 10,000. And you can't actually open your eyes, because when you open your eyes, it burns. So he was doing the right thing by just pouring water into his eyes. So I said, "Come on, mate, and we'll take you," because the operational procedure was to take a person that had been sprayed to the hospital where they can get, some sort of treatment for it. Anyway, so I did that. I said, "Mate, just get in the back of the truck and we'll take you up to the hospital." And I just said, "They got the antidote." So we readily and quickly got into the back of the truck and we took him to the hospital, and they did what they had to do. And so we then took him back to the police station to be charged, because he was going to be charged with assault police. And so when we got him back to the station, this might have been, maybe 2 hours later after I'd sprayed him. And he was just starting to calm down, because he was saying, when we first took hold of him, he was saying, I'm dying. And because he thought he was dying from this capsicum spray in the eyes. Anyway, got him back to the station. He was sort of calmed down. The treatment had worked, and but then it must have been warm. I don't know why, but he took his shirt off. He had a T-shirt on, I recall, and he took the T-shirt off. But the T-shirt, of course, had capsicum spray still on it. And as he took the T-shirt over his head, it then reinfected his eyes. So the whole mantra of I'm dying started all over again. And so I didn't know up until that point that capsicum spray was dual action. Anyway, I think that was pretty funny, and no doubt he probably learnt from that and behaved himself next time. The next story is truly tragic. Again, this happened in a big, I won't say which town, I don't think it matters, but a big town I was working in. And there was a motorcycle gang had a clubhouse not very far out of town. You might say semi-rural part of town. And, there was, prior to this incident, there was a confrontation or a physical fight between 2 men at their clubhouse over who knows what, who knows what. And so the person that was maybe tossed out of there, or the aggrieved party, decided to drive past there this particular night that I was doing night shift, and opened fire with a semi-automatic centre-fire rifle. It just peppered bullets into the clubhouse. What do you do when you're an organised criminals and someone does something like that to you? You ring the cops. Ironic, I think. Anyway, so they rang the cops, and so we were called, summoned as General Duties Police to go out there and start initial investigations. As I said, it was in a semi-rural part of town, and I got on the radio and I said, "Can you ring them? Whoever rang us, tell them we're heading out and I'm going to put the red and blue lights on," because I thought they might be very, trigger happy. Who knows what's going to happen? So I made sure I had the red and blue lights on, so they knew it was us arriving. I really don't remember much about it. went out there and started the investigation, and not long after that the detectives would have taken over the job. Before I finished my shift for that night, which was at 6 a.m, there was a subsequent another shooting, drive-by shooting, at a club member's private residence. That is just an abominable thing to do, to open fire on someone's home. And then, of course, this stirs up great passion amongst people, and the person that the club members were outraged by this, and of course, they pride themselves in being outside of society, and yet they rang the police, I might add. But the truly horrible, tragic part of this story came, I would say it was at least weeks later, maybe more than a month. There was a man, let's call him Joe Citizen. He got up in the morning. It happened maybe reasonably early in the morning, would have been daylight hours, I think. There was a knock at the door. He got up and answered the door to his the front door of his home where his family lived, and he was shot dead, blasted into the chest with a heavy caliber rifle, instantly dead, because the members thought that he was the one that did the crime against them. And the thing was, when you operate outside of the law, when you don't know what you're doing, they shot the wrong man. Complete and utter innocent man, dead. Horrible thing to do. I'm not sure, I do believe, although I'm not certain, I do believe that the police investigation led them to the true offender who faced justice. But, it's just, you cannot overstate how absolutely horrid that is. Absolutely horrid. Anyway, I'll move to, there's another story of the same, in some ways the same ilk. When I worked in this big town, you might say you become, in some ways, familiar with members of organised crime. And I won't say there's mutual respect, because I didn't respect them. But there was two particular people that I came across who that I sort of got to know. And one of them was in charge of a brothel, and she was the madam, and she had a client who was going to partake of one of her girls' services in a local motel. Now, as far as I know, all this was legal. So the madam was there facilitating this job, and the client was a member of another motorcycle gang. And there was a kerfuffle between the madam and the client, where the client got a shovel and went to strike the madam in the head with a shovel, a wide-mouthed shovel. Didn't actually make contact with her, but it was enough to make her hair move. That was in her statement, which constitutes the offence of common assault. And again, they reported it to the police, and I took over the investigation. Later that night, she didn't know the name of the person, but a very good description. And if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, and I think it might have been a character called Gimli, who had very, very long hair and a long beard. Well, the person looked just like Gimli, and we actually saw Gimli walking across the highway from a service station where he might have bought some food, back over to the motel where the assault occurred. We saw him, I was with my partner, we stopped the truck, got out and arrested him without incident, took him back to the station, charged him with a common assault. And that must have been the last. I actually transferred not long after that, and because there was actually a plea of not guilty to it. But I believe that someone else took over going to court and that side of it, and I actually believe he was found guilty. Well, that's it for today, folks. But for those who want to enjoy a drive in my HR, come along with me and we'll do that now. Okay, this is the car that I bought about 13 years ago saw it for sale in a bloke's front yard one night when I was out patrolling. And the first thing you probably notice about it is the crazy ball bar on it, that I had that made by a local engineering company to keep wallabies off it, and already it saved it twice. It looks pretty ugly, but the original ball bar, or bumper bar, sorry, is under that one that you saw. Since I bought it, it has been resprayed, and it has leather, now has leather interior that was done by a local upholsterer. And one of the things I noticed is that after having the leather upholstery put in it, it doesn't smell like a Holden anymore. If you know Holdens or Holdens from this era, you know they have a particular smell. Well, I can tell you, the smell must come from the vinyl, because it doesn't smell like a Holden anymore. But it does have the Holden squeaky door. And when I show people the squeaky door, I tell them that's the burglar alarm. I know someone's getting into it. Anyway, beautiful old car. It's probably one of the last HRs being made in 1968. And I think it might have been late 1968 from memory. So it might have been one of the last ones to roll off the production line. And got the Venetian blinds in it as well. It has the mag, I think they're called mag wheels on it. Most of them had the cheese cutter type wheels and tyres, but this one, they actually originally came out with these wider wheels and tyres. And it's a HR special, although it does have, I did have retrofitted the bonnet decoration, which is off a Holden Premier, which was the upgraded model. So that's why that's on there. So it's a bit of a mishmash. It's not really original with the upholstery, but it's still a nice car. I love it. Okay, what I'm doing now, because it has special interest rego, which some people might call club registration, I'm allowed to drive it on average twice a week, and it's just 2 trips, whatever that means, no distance involved, and I just have to fill in this logbook with the odometer reading and say where I'm going. You have to do that before you actually leave, so I'm doing that now. Now what we're doing now, we're on the road between Pagara, Homestead and Curry. Curry's about 13 kilometres away, so I'll take you into Curry and show you around our main town, which has got about 500 people in it. I can tell you one thing, I couldn't live in a big place like that. You have to bear in mind that this is it measures in miles an hour, and of course our speed limits here are listed in kilometres an hour, but I pretty much know what the difference is. One of the things on King Island is that when you go past someone on the road, whether you know them or not, he always gives a friendly wave like that.
Not a wave.
We're now entering the metropolis of Curry, population around 500. Got to slow right down now to 35 mile an hour, something like that. There's a veterinary surgery on our left. I go in there for a checkup every now and again. This is the eastern suburbs just over here. A few new buildings. Got the hospital coming up on our right, very well equipped hospital. If you need anything done that they can't do there, they bring the Royal Flying Doctor in and fly you down to Tasmania or up to Melbourne. Have a dentist comes here, the Royal Flying Doctor service brings a dentist over here quite regularly. If you look off into the ocean, off into the distance now, you can see the ocean. And now we're on the west coast, which means that's the Southern Ocean over there.
That's it.
I'm just going to go and fuel up because it's getting pretty low. So here we are, folks, at the Curry Lighthouse, and we're looking over the Southern Ocean. If you keep looking, keep going that direction, you'll end up in the Antarctic. Beautiful spot.